Welcome everyone to this tech session with Kimmo from Solita. Kimmo, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi, and thanks for having me. I'm an information architect slash MDM lead at Solita, and been around doing this data stuff for a bit more than 10 years already, and playing a big role also introducing a new MDM tool into the Scandinavian or Northern Europe market as well, called Semarkey.
Excellent. So MDM as a term is a term that's been around for quite a long time. And I suppose now it's being adapted to the workflows and the kind of things that data scientists do on a daily basis. So I guess depending on who you ask, some might feel that governance and MDM and all that kind of stuff is a hindrance, and some might think that it's tremendously useful. What kind of feedback do you get from data scientists when it comes to what MDM provides them? Is it a good part of the workflow, or is it a hindrance, or like how do you position it?
Yeah, typically our data scientists love us as we take the burden of wrangling the data and putting the data correct in the first place. But of course, they also might want to have their hands on the actual raw material and so on. But then there are other tools to provide that kind of availability of data. But when it comes to the data quality and understanding the data processes and making the data better to be useful for not only for data scientists, but also for business perspective, then MDM is the tool for the job, as it also gives you visibility why these, for example, two customers have been merged together and why these two haven't. As typically, if we are doing this kind of match and merging within only on ETL processes, then that kind of information is lost to the technical bits and pieces only, and nobody understands why happening.
What kinds of processes are related to MDM that might not be part of the workflow of data scientists, but are nevertheless important to an organization? Things like data lineage and so on. What kinds of things do data scientists not often think about, but are nevertheless important?
Well, I think the data scientist point of view, you are not interested on where the data is coming from and who inputted it where and why. But within the MDM, we want to understand the actual processes, how to actually improve the data quality already in the first place when the data objects are created. For example, this is called centralization of data processes, which is used quite often with product information management. We could have multiple places where the data is inputted in the first place, for example, ERP or PDM systems, but we all together can utilize also MDM tool for these kind of jobs.
Okay, so MDM overlaps a little bit with other technologies. You mentioned before that if somebody wants to get access to raw data or maybe do certain types of computation, MDM isn't the right solution. Can you define the scope of MDM a little bit? Like, what is for MDM and what's not for MDM for a data scientist?
Not sure if from the point of data scientist, but from the point of MDM, I'd say that if you or your business really need an understanding and a view into the data itself, then you would like to have kind of a possibilities to look at the actual data and how the processes are done and so on. So we have tools that are nowadays not only for IT people, but also for the business people to run the actual data processes with these tools. So in that sense, it helps us to build more efficient data processes, but also business processes. For example, we can also do a little bit of business design and test how this data should be seen and how it would look in the near future if we are defining those kind of new data products.
Right. So these definitions, are they just IT sort of data wrangling issues, or are they, do they put requirements on business people to define things? And are they more, I guess I'm asking if these are as much organizational challenges as they are technical challenges. What would you say?
Yeah, you're completely right here in the sense that most of the challenges that we face while implementing MDM is that the organization is not ready. So I'm sad to say that even though MDM has gone quite a long way further, it's not a silver bullet. So we need to have those kind of definitions. What needs to be done? What is prioritized and what is valuable for you to kind of fix and get your grasp on? So in that sense, I'd say we can help and ease the way to get to be a data-driven company. But of course, the path there is long, and we need to understand quite a few different things and bits.
Right.
But one of the main things I still want to mention here is that nowadays the MDM tools themselves, they are not built only for IT people, but also for the business people.
Okay, so they're meant still to be used by people that make the decisions about the structure of the data and the sort of the business processes themselves, not just, interpreted by IT people who hopefully understand things. Yeah.
So our standpoint is that we want to build a business-led data management in the sense that we have the same vocabulary and same kind of language with the business people. And within then the integration part, we then perhaps would need to understand also the ERPs and the target systems, data models, and then do that kind of mapping. But the actual business processes and business model is shared with the business people as well. So we have the same definitions for those kind of main objects that are needed by the business.
It seems like provided that the interface is good enough that business people actually can work with it, that sort of avoids the potential pitfall of having to make sure that the IT people truly understand what the business people have defined. And so you remove one potential cause of errors. Always when somebody needs to interpret something, there can be errors. And you said before that it's still challenging to implement this. What would you say are pitfalls, and how can organizations prepare? Like, how should they set up, a project around MDM to avoid these kinds of pitfalls?
First of all, MDM is not a project; it's a process that you are taking on yourselves. Okay. But the main thing here is that eat the elephant bit by bit. So don't try to chunk too much at a time. So that said, prioritize the work. Start with the smaller steps. For example, just understanding for example, core definitions of customer, the name and the ID, perhaps the country or something like that, but nothing else. And on top of that, you start to build your overall data model little by little whenever the business need is there. With this small core, you can already kind of start to give value to your business through understanding that overall customer number of your company, in the sense that all the different applications should have these definitions in place, and within the reporting you can just make a hierarchy out of that, and that's it. You have the kind of 360 view possible, right? Even though that's only an analytical use case, and from that then you can move on to actually make it a more operational use case as well.
Can you expand a little bit more on the distinction between viewing MDM as a process and viewing it as a project where, okay, now we're done, we've done the MDM machine. What does it mean for it to be a process?
Yeah, as I said earlier, there is data processes that needs to be understood, and as long as we are learning also from the definitions and how we have been evolving around the MDM, we are then making our process better and better, in the sense that what needs to be there and how much of different definitions we need. From the project point of view, it's typically seen only a kind of, let's put this, we have these definitions and let's put it there, and that's it, it's done. But then, as you might know also, then there's change all the way waiting to happen, and then we need something else from the business, and maybe some ERP has been changed, or a CRM system is in renewal phase or something, and these all affect to the MDM. So the data quality is a living thing in that sense, and we need to get it better so the business can trust the data.
Okay, so maybe if your business is static and never changes ever, then MDM is a project. Otherwise, it's a never-ending process that changes along with your business.
Yeah, but could you show me one enterprise that is kind of static?
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, I guess, we're saying here that MDM is a process and that there are sort of business objectives that need to be taken into account, but it's still enabled by a lot of tech. And there's tech that's been around for a long time to do MDM. Sometimes, if you ask database vendors, MDM is just a database. But I think that there's more to it than that. And also there's new tech that's coming out now that makes MDM more compelling. Can you expand on that? What do you think is the state of the art?
Yeah, in the early days, MDM was kind of an extension of database. For example, maybe I'm not going there, but and during those days, MDM programs tend to take quite a long time before they could give any value out of the program or the process itself. But nowadays, as we are taking more agile approach and we have the tools that can be put into the hands of the business people, we are able to get value out of this kind of work much faster and give kind of visibility what's happening under the hood. So all the business people are also invited to this change process itself. One good example for this is, for example, this Solita's packaging of Semarchy XDM as a service with our capabilities and experience from Azure, and all operated and managed in one bill, in the sense that you can just concentrate on building your business solutions, not technically understanding what needs to happen, where and why, and so on. So we take the burden away, and we can focus on actually doing better business.
Right. So there's more pieces to it than simply storing the data or something like that from a data perspective.
Yeah, definitely. For example, all the interfaces, maybe dashboarding and user experiences, workflows, and all that kind of typical tools and functionalities what are required from nowadays data processing tools.
So business managers now that are looking to up their game when it comes to master data management, are there any hype words or new technologies that they should be sort of perking their ears for, or keeping in mind when trying to evaluate various vendors towards each other? Or maybe pitfalls, this is something everybody's talking about, but that's not really what's important. So like what kind of cues should they be looking for?
I'd say the best way of looking into and minimizing the risk is to have a fast POC or proof of value, POV. That said, we are able to run a kind of a business-led proof of value within already like in 2 weeks, and that is something that older players in the game have not been able to do, as they need to have all the servers installed and all that kind of stuff before actually starting to do and give you something valuable. And from our point of view also is that involve business as much as possible. It's not about the tech, it's all about process and people as well.
The fact that you suggest it can be run in 2 weeks makes me feel like I think a lot of people, when they think about master data management, they think it's all or nothing.
Yeah.
And obviously you can't do all of it in 2 weeks. So you have to be able to chop it down. And can you share an experience about that? Like how small can you chop it down? 2 weeks sounds really small.
Yeah, well, of course, we need to understand the business requirement and business process that we are needed to be able to bring the value in. But perhaps one good example is that we have, for example, 4 systems with a kind of isolated data models for the customer, and we take it in and wrangle by ourselves and make the data model by ourselves that should be fit for the business need for example, analytical use case. Or another good example is kind of a reference data, how we are going to build processes around reference data, because typically those are non-existent. And whenever there is a new system, just take the reference data out of somewhere. And then again, we can see in integration part that, okay, we took a wrong set of data and this is not matching and we cannot match all the, for example, transactions. So these kind of smaller cases are the ones that should be looked into, that have an effect, but are not that complex to really go forward.
Okay, well, I guess one question then is, I mean, it sounds like the barrier to entry is quite low, and that's interesting. So do you have to reinvent the platform or redesign it once you realize, wow, this was more valuable than I thought. It's not as difficult as I thought. I want to do it everywhere. And then you have to redesign everything the right way because this was just a POC. Like, how does that typically work out?
This is actually a good point in the sense that, of course, our product itself is pretty, how to say, just for this kind of work. We can start small and expand and while we are growing. So there is not really a redesign needed. But of course, if there is a business case that needs to separate the data physically completely, then maybe we need another environment. But all of these, what we have done and the projects we have built are done through the data ops manner, in the sense that we can really push these to new environments easily. And because of our service packaging, we can kickstart these new environments up and running within kind of a matter of minutes compared to the earlier days or weeks even.
Is that something that's completely enabled by the cloud, or is it part of the design that makes that possible? And can you please tell me, for people that are wondering if this is a cloud only thing or an on-prem only thing, like how should they approach cloud versus on-prem MDM?
Whenever it's cloud, you can trust us and we can take care of everything for you. But if you want to do it in on-prem, that's okay as well. The tool itself is designed to utilize kind of a really lot used technologies that are available for all of the cloud vendors, but also for the on-premise world. So you can choose whatever is needed for your business processes. But all in all, I'd say it's both of what you just asked. So it's the architectural principles are pretty easy, but also the cloud enables us to go much faster than before.
Right. And most of your customers that are starting a new journey from scratch, would they start on-prem or would they start in the cloud?
On cloud, definitely.
Cloud first is the way to go nowadays.
Yeah, it seems so, at least on the Nordics.
All right. Okay, so this does seem compelling. There seems to be some pretty exciting new tech. What would you give advice to somebody that wants to start the MDM journey? What is the lowest hanging fruit, or what should they keep their eyes out for? What is your top piece of advice?
Don't try to make the world complete at once, but it's a journey. It's take a little step at a time, and iterative approach is the key, I'd say. And also one thing to keep in mind is that the change management can be the hardest point in here. So involve the business users or the end users as much as possible, as early as possible. So that said, start small, but have the big vision in the back of your head.
All right. Change management from day one and start small.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Kimmo. I think we went through quite a lot now in this short period of time. And for anybody listening in, if you want to get started with MDM management, Kimmo and Solita are your go-to guys. Feel free to reach out to them. And thanks for joining us today. See you soon.
Thank you.